Hello and welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. I'm Demosthenes, and with me as always is Mr. Kyle Nash. How's it going, Kyle?
Demosthenes, I have to come to you today as Vito Corleone because today is a day I express to you that the happiest thing that I, Vito Corleone, can say about what we're about to discuss this evening, what makes my heart lift, the only thing, is the fact that my character is dead at the time of this movie.
Well, it's been an offer that we can't refuse. Our very first episode of required viewing was The Godfather, followed by Godfather 1 vs. 2. Now, almost a year later, we're on to Godfather Part 3. A prime example of the saying that the third film in the trilogy is usually the weakest, and this is a staple of that trope. So what you're never really gonna ask is, The Godfather Part 3 really that bad? Kyle, I know since you hadn't seen any of the Godfathers before we did these episodes, now that you've seen Godfather Part 3, now that you've completed the experience, how do you feel?
Um, Not as good as when I started with just the first two movies. I'll tell you what. Listen, going into this thing, I knew it had this reputation of being this awful movie, and they were like in this one, I knew a lot less about it. I feel like than the other two. Right, with Godfather 1, there were a number of scenes I knew were coming. I knew I'd have Vito Corleone. All that other stuff. Um, and with Godfather 2, I knew I would have the whole thing with Fredo and all that. And this one, I knew I would have just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. I knew I had that coming. But in this case, that was about it. I did not expect to see Diane Keaton return. I did not expect to see Joe Mantegna. I did not expect to see. I knew Andy Garcia was a part of it. I did not know that he was this big a role. And if you ask me, he is the shining gem. He is the diamond in the coal mine that is this movie. And I tried to look at it with an open mind. I would say, listen, everyone hates this movie, whatever. People have been wrong before. No, like this movie slapped me in the face that it was that bad. I'm just saying.
Wow. The only three prominent returning cast members from the original films are Pacino, Keaton, and Talia Shire as Connie, who has a much beefier role in this film.
She was
Uh,
good at too, by the way. I did like her role and involvement in the movie. I enjoyed her particularly in it. Absolutely.
yeah, and I mean, if we're talking about the cast, I agree with you 100%. Andy Garcia nails it. He looks like he belongs in this universe. Getting to the topic of casting, this film is notorious for some, let's just say, less than less than um ugh, let's just say less than when it comes to Sofia Coppola as Mary. What did you think of that? Because that is, when people normally talk about The Godfather Part 3, that is probably the biggest criticism, whether it's accusations of nepotism because she is the daughter of Francis Ford Coppola, the director. Why couldn't it have been Winona Ryder, who had to drop out due to fatigue? What did you think of Sophia?
First of all, listen, it wasn't as slam dunk a choice. You mentioned Andy Garcia. Hell, he was even an Italian American hiding his identity in Untouchables. So he was even Italian in that. And now he's not hiding his identity and doing his best Evander Holyfield impression on Joe Mantegna. Listen, that was obviously a home run. Sofia Coppola, to be honest, like I get why people don't like her as a choice. That being said, when I hear the alternative is Winona Ryder, I would argue she's a better fit, at least as far as the look. Winona Ryder looks too much like a kid. Like it would be almost awkward that that Vincenzo was chasing Winona Ryder without even the fact that it was his first cousin. At least with Sofia Coppola, you get it. She kind of, says it, and all that. As far as her acting job, I can get why people are critical of it. I don't feel like she's a horrible actress, but she does start to stick out when you put her in the room with heavyweights like Joe Mantegna, like Andy Garcia, like Al Pacino. And if that was happening, the criticism is justified. Am I prepared to say that it was the worst aspect of this movie? I really can't do that. I don't really think this was what was the most. If your biggest problem was Sofia Coppola, this movie should have worked. Not every bit of acting is superb in Godfather 1 and 2, but it moves well enough to where some of that is supplanted.
I'm with you. I don't think it's a make it or break it. She is better in some scenes than others. I think the one scene that to me has always stood out as the one scene where she's flat out terrible is a breakfast scene that she has with Al Pacino. Everything that she says feels like she's reading it off a script pasted on his face. But I have to point out real quick, this film might be a cinematic first, and you have her father directing her in an incestual love scene. That must have been awkward. Nominated for Best Picture. I can't think of another movie, but I think one of the other reasons that I can see why people attack a performance is not only is it the fact that a lot of people say, oh, she needed better direction or this or that. Hell, half the cast is giving her direction on screen. They're her very first scene. You have other characters telling her, okay, make sure to smile when you make this presentation. Make sure to look presentable. They teach her how to cook later on. So they're constantly directing her, even on screen.
Exactly. You needed a horrible actress. It fit the character. This had no business being nominated. You want to talk about politics within the Oscars? This is among them, okay? If Joe Smith was the director and, put in his daughter, Angelica Smith, or no, that's a bad choice, Tracy Smith, this wouldn't have seen the light of day, period. It would have been straight to video.
The Godfather as a series, nepotism to a degree has kind of been, if you actually go as far as to make the accusation, it's got to be a staple. How Talia Shire is Francis Ford Coppola's sister. And The Godfather, its basic theme has always been about family.
I'll tell you something here, Vincenzo, when I said keep it in the family, that's not at all what I meant.
So what did you think of Pacino in this film?
Al Pacino is Al Pacino, dude. He steps to the plate. He kicked ass. I kind of felt like he didn't necessarily want to be there, but he was really good. Listen, he actually made me buy that he was an adult version of Michael Corleone who actually dealt with this, all this BS, came out the other side somehow unscathed by the grace of God. That experience has made him realize F this noise to the 1000th degree. And I also see parts where he does actually carry himself with the wisdom that he may have learned through the years from his experiences and under the tutelage of his father, Vito. I saw all that present there in my mind. The scene between him, the best, I would argue possibly the best exchange in the whole movie is early on, which is this movie's biggest problem, was between Michael Corleone, Al Pacino, Mantegna's Joey Zaza, and Vincenzo, I forget his actual last name, but he's Sonny's child, right? His illegitimate child, which, by the way, love the way Andy Garcia captured the bit of Sonny in that hot-headedness. It fit perfectly. You knew this was Sonny's kid. This is the thing, even more than Al Pacino himself, that tied all the way from the first movie into the third one here. the best out of every damn thing else. Sure, you don't even see Sonny in movie 2, obviously, because it's a drop and he gets taken down in movie 1.
Well, other than a cameo.
But even still, like, in the first one, it's a trap. That's the point. But um, you if you were paid, you should have been paid off if you had actually seen all three movies. Watching Andy Garcia's rendition as Sonny's kid, and one who would have to deal being referred to as an illegitimate kid and dealing with all that trash, he fit. His portrayal was absolute gold.
It's interesting. It's an interesting arc that he has, because he basically starts off as the hot-headed Sonny and transforms into the Michael Corleone of the end of The Godfather, the beginning of Godfather Part 2. Al Pacino was fantastic, as always. I don't feel like his performance here was as strong as the first two films. Connie, I kind of like what they did with her character here. They stepped her up. She was, in many respects, the godmother,
so to speak. Yeah.
One of the biggest issues I have with this film is it's very derivative of the first two films, especially the first one. There is very little that this film does that really strikes new ground, with the exception of the interactions with the Vatican. But even then, the villainy behind that is nowhere near as interesting than anything that we saw in the previous films.
1,000% agree. 1,000% agree that it just did not carry things. Now, granted, I understand the corner that they were painted in, right? The stakes kept going up and the stakes kept going up. The movie opens. The problem is there was a lot of potential there, right? The movie opens, Mary Corleone talks about a foundation that's giving what is this, Bishop, $100 million
In 1979 money.
In 1979, like $100 million would have still been a big deal to Dr. Evil before he warped into the future. And we're not too far off from that. We're like, what, a decade removed from that? Definitely. And then they're talking billions. And again, to your accurate point, in 1970 bleeding 9. And they might have gone a bit overboard with trying to go that high. I mean, again, I know they're trying to raise the stakes they're trying to basically make Michael Corleone an international. No, he's starting to step into trying to be an international enterprise. And then he's having interactions with the Pope. And I think it just went a little too crazy with that. I see what they were going for. They were trying to be sensational, and that's all great. But no.
Well, the one thing that's interesting is the fact that a lot of the events that happen in the film are directly inspired by real-life events of the time. John Paul I dying within 30 days of his papacy, and the Vatican banking scandal of the time. This film feels much more disconnected than the other films, especially, and I'm saying that following Godfather Part 2, which your biggest issue with the film was that it kept jumping back and forth between two different timelines and two different stories. And yet this is a film that just feels so much more disconnected. For a nearly 3-hour film, I still feel like there's a lot missing, and there's just a lot of other shit in there that do we need, like the half-hour long, travel guide through Sicily?
Right, and exactly. And to your point, like, in Godfather 2, they're leaping times. They're traveling through time between the different stuff. They're just leaping back and forth between here and Sicily, and it's still a damn mess.
I think, but like we said, Andy Garcia is fantastic in this film. Right. I really enjoyed his character. He carried the movie for me. In fact, my favorite scene in the film was one of his very first scenes when the two.
Is it the wallet scene?
Yes.
Oh my God, that was the best scene in the movie.
That's the exact, and it's not just because Bridget Fonda was only wearing a leather jacket.
It didn't hurt, but
Danny Elfman married her later.
Good for him.
Now I see where he gets all the ongo bongo.
Oh,
his music. No, that was the best scene. That scene felt like it was connected to the other films. It felt like it lifted right off. And it was the only scene that survived all of the drafts of The Godfather Part 3.
Like that felt like something Sonny's kid or half kid or whatever it is should get into. Absolutely.
But I will say, and this is not a fault of Garcia, this is a fault of the damn script. It's his turn from Sonny to Michael, from the hot-headed guy to the more legitimate character. That turn I just didn't see. Yeah, I don't think they nailed that very well. It just happened. Literally, they're in one scene they're in New York. He's shooting people up, and then the very next scene they're in Italy, in Sicily, and he's an equal. All of a sudden,
It goes from biting ears off to doing what you're talking about. No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Spoilers, bitches. Spoilers.
there are a lot of scenes in the last act of the film at the opera that are very good. There are many scenes during this act that are haunting and remind you of the greatness and the wonderful directorial flair of Coppola. But goddamn, did they have to show the entire goddamn opera?
Moreover, you sit through all that, and for the actual final scene to be so blah, like you knew what was going to happen long before it did, and they tried to make it epic, and it just didn't land. First of all, for me, the worst acting you saw from Sofia Coppola was, Dad. I'm sorry, did not feel that. Moreover, the one thing they did, which I have to admit was kind of cool, was like having Al Pacino frozen with this face.
That is probably the other most memorable scene in this film. If you're talking about the two scenes that are most referenced from this film, it's, they pull me back in and consummated O-face.
More people choose X-Lax than any other laxative.
Oh, I had a point, but I think I finally let it loose in the wrong place after my constipated. Oh, or rather, what? No shit. Damn it! I lost my point. Oh, I don't know what's better, that or Jamaican cunnilingus. Anyways, damn it. That's gonna make the year end, I'm sure. No, but like, but see, listen, and you're gonna make fun of me again with my movie comparisons again. But like, if you were disappointed last week with Ryan Reynolds and the extending of the death scene that wasn't to be in Deadpool, the fact that he holds for as long as he did, that lasted way too long. Way too long.
Once again, not the fault of the actor, because there was genuine passion behind that.
Oh yeah. Oh no. You can tell he is genuinely constipated while having an O-face. There's no question.
I mean, the biggest issue, and once again, this is like you said at the beginning of the show. Okay, with the Godfather, with the first two films, there's so many iconic scenes that even if you haven't seen the film, you're aware of them. So watching this film, even back when I first watched it decades ago, I didn't know what I was really in for. And goddamn, the foreshadowing that she's gonna be killed in this.
Uh-huh.
I don't even want to call it foreshadowing, because the only thing they didn't do is have some Italian subtitles pop up. She gonna die.
Yeah, right. One of the guys is Jar Jar Binks. You think she gonna die?
And there's a far more memorable performance.
Oh no, he didn't. I wonder. K2SO comes in. You know the odds that Mary is going to die? They're high. Very high.
Once again, I don't really. I'm not putting a lot of the blame on Sophia. I think she does her best, and there's some scenes that she does pretty well in. She gets a lot of crap. I thought the son was worse.
He wasn't on screen enough to be that memorable, I think, is the problem.
Like, yes, it's too dangerous. I mean, I hope that he did his own singing. I'm not sure if he did. Because then I can give him at least a little bit of credit.
I should have had him sing that. Hey, it's too dangerous.
But the death montages
Yeah.
in the Godfather films they're nothing new, and usually when they happen in both of those films, when the family finally gets revenge, because it's something that happens in every single one of the three films. This one is missing that level of tautness, the level of danger. It because it just feels so spread out. The most interesting thing that's happening during the opera scene is that badass assassin.
Well, and that whole exchange and him moving through was very cool, I have to admit.
And yet he still goes, despite all that, despite faking his death so he can kill like 3 people and all the awesome stuff that he does, and yet he pulls that shit at the very end. There's just so many moments in the ending of this film that just rang falsely, and it's capped off by Michael falling over in a chair and getting licked by a dog. I don't know what the hell was going on in that scene.
I don't remember that. Was that before or after?
It was after. He broke his vocal cords, so he couldn't speak anymore. So it was. I mean, I guess it was. To me, it just felt like the at least that final coda felt like a disservice to his character. I understand what they were doing, and really, this film, more than the others, is far more of a morality play, which makes sense. You're dealing with the Vatican, you're dealing with church, you're dealing with I mean, confession and the sins of his past coming back to haunt him. He's trying to get out, he's trying to become legitimate, etc., etc., etc.
He's trying to get cleaner, but the Vatican's getting dirtier.
To be honest, that was, if they had focused on that a little bit more, that was fascinating. That could have been what I think one of the weaker parts of part 2 was all the dealings in Cuba. This could have been much more powerful than that, especially the idea that the Vatican is the real Italian mafia. That is fascinating shit.
Oh, perhaps the mafia?
But I will say, I did not expect blatant Barbie product placement in a Godfather film. We have that. I guess I wouldn't have noticed it as much if it wasn't for the fact that all the presents that Sofia Coppola is holding are wrapped, except for the one that says Barbie in big letters. I really wanted to be. I wish I could have seen that pitch meeting of the Godfather producers to Mattel.
I have a great idea for you. This is a family film. This family comes.
It literally is a family film.
Anyways,
what aspects do you feel like it really nailed?
I like Joey Zaza. I like that character. I like what they were trying to build there. Joe Mantegna is probably of that time is certainly one of the more underrated actors. I find him to be a William H. Macy type, a guy who isn't necessarily a leading man, but still very good. If you don't see many bad films with him in it, and if you do, it's films where he added something to it. His performance in there, fantastic. Never really hear about it. But Joey Zaza as a character was just the right amount of smart and just the right amount of obnoxious. I got to tell you, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Joey Zaza in there.
I just wish that his exit from the film also wasn't very derivative of the parade scene from the second film. There are just so many scenes in this film that could have been great, but ended up just harkening back. Oh, remember this from the first film? It's as George Lucas would say, it rhymes. It's poetry. Give me a break. once again, like 10 too many flashbacks as well. None of the other films, god damn it, the Godfather Part 2, half the film was a goddamn flashback, and it didn't feel like there were as many flashbacks.
I see what you're doing there. That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point.
Joe Montana, I agree. He was great. You know, it was before his star turn in the classic Baby's Day Out.
You're a terrible human being for made my soul die a little bit there.
I made my soul die a little bit just saying it. I think I just killed my Horcrux.
I went from Godfather to this?
No, I don't hate the film. In fact, I think that I think it's because a lot of the biggest issues that this film has is because of its pedigree.
Yeah.
If this wasn't The Godfather Part 3, if this was a standalone film, it wouldn't have had as many flashbacks. But if it was a standalone film, I think it would have been received much more strongly. I don't think it would have been well, it wouldn't have been panned as much as it has been, because everybody's automatically getting compared to two, you know, masterpiece films. I think it would have been, yeah, even as it stands, it's not as strong as some of the other genre films of its kind in the 80s. I honestly think that to this day, I think that the best, and I'm not even a big fan of this genre, and yet The Untouchables is one of my favorite films of all time. This doesn't compare to that film.
Hell no. Are you kidding me? I have to wrestle with my soul to know to decide whether I like Untouchables more than the Godfather first one.
That's exactly where I was going to take it next. That would be an interesting comparison for possibly a future episode.
Oh God, I'm gonna walk away from that one with my heart on the floor. Jesus, let's not think about that right now. Listen, man, no.
What are you prepared to do, Kyle?
What are you prepared to do? My situation is not improved. Anyways, listen. Here's no, but when it comes to Godfather 3, man, you say its pedigree was its problem. I don't.
One of its problems, not its. You know,
I think it gets panned because it was the only reason it was nominated, and I mentioned this earlier, was because of its pedigree. Yes. I think that's why it gets panned. There is no way. If you lived in that time and you saw this, no, this is up there with Home Alone winning a Best Picture. Are you out of your bleeding mind?
I do not want to live in that reality. And, you know, but once again, it's like it's that 16-year wait, and Coppola himself said that he did it for the money, and that he views this more than, you know, he views this as an epilogue to the first two films. Those first two films were that story. This is an additional epilogue. I mean, it's not. If you're talking about long-awaited sequels, this isn't Kingdom of the Crystal Skull bad or anything. I mean, there is quality in this film. There are scenes that are masterfully shot, and there are a lot of moments, distinct moments that work very well, and a lot of that is due to the performances of Pacino, of Garcia, of Keaton. Although
listen, she nails the part, but the character is more of a sounding board for Michael trying to clean up his past.
So you just spurred this thought in my head, which I really didn't think about until this moment. You're dealing with a story about redemption. You're dealing with a story about forgiveness. You're dealing with a story that involves the Catholic Church, and well, overall, you're dealing with a story that touches on this couple's split, and the abortion from Part 2 never comes up.
I got a damn thing for you.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah. In my opinion, this is a Godfather movie in names alone, and as in the title and the use of the Corleone name. That is it.
You know that the original title was The Death of Michael Corleone?
Would have been more appropriate, because then it would only been a Godfather movie in one name.
So I guess this brings us to the main question of the evening, and I think I know the answer already. Is The Godfather Part 3 required viewing?
Oh God, no. Oh, do yourself. It's required not viewing. It's like you should dodge this. Okay, yeah, no, just no.
Unless it's a scene that involves Brigitte Fonda in a leather jacket.
And only a leather jacket.
Who knew that Brigitte Fonda would be like the highlight of a Godfather film?
Okay, listen. Andy Garcia was the highlight. She was just the icing. I'm just saying.
No, it's not required viewing. How dare you even ask? So
you asked, mother beep.
So, what did you guys think of The Godfather Part 3? Is it really as bad as they say and we say? And of course, we're right. But if you disagree, let us know in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Follow me on hilaritybydefault.com for lots of fun stuff every week. On Twitter at Default Hilarity. And on Facebook and Instagram, Hilarity by Default. Kyle, where can we find you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at the SOTG. And of course, you can find me on Facebook as Kyle Nash, the student of the game. I actually let loose an excellent show of Dinner Time with friend of the show and oft had co-host Tokyo J. Check that out on Blog Talk Radio. Go to blogtalkradio.com, search Dinner Time. And then, of course, check me out on Blue HQ Media. My latest piece has things thumping as we talked an awful lot about LBJ, LeBron James, and Michael Jordan, who's the best NBA basketball player. And we focus on some of the bad arguments used on either side of that debate. And hey, looking out here soon. If you haven't seen it yet, you should by now. The latest edition of the Sports Fan's Guide to Nerd Culture. I'm just saying.
Those are always fun. Well, make sure to check out Default Assault every Thursday, where life is hilarious by default.